Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Dr. L here with another installment with RStudio. In this segment, I'm going to show you how to install and run the Swirl packages. Those are those self-tutorialized instructionals that will help you kind of learn some of the ins and outs, at least at a very basic level, in the R Programming E set of lessons in the Swirl lesson package. So the first thing we're going to do here, once we have RStudio opened, is I'm going to open up that code chunk file that I provided to you guys on, on Blackboard for the LMS. So you should be able to go on the Blackboard into the Supplemental Materials tab and find the code chunk labeled number 1, which should be Swirl installation and submission instructions. And you need to download that to your computer. You should be able to do something like a right-click, save as, or save link as, or something to that effect to download that file onto your computer. And then you're going to have to open that file in RStudio. So I'm going to hit this little open icon here up in the top left, which I think everyone is fairly familiar with. So let's go ahead and push that. And I'm going to find that file that is relevant here, the Swirl installation and submission instructions. And I'm going to go ahead and hit open. And you'll notice once I do that now, in the top left window of the screen, okay, we now have our script file open. And the R script file is already written for us. I've provided that for you guys. But that is here in the top left. That is the script file. Again, the bottom left is going to be the console window. And you'll notice there's a lot of green text in that file. That green text we talked about in the last segment. Those are comments, which are essentially idle code. It doesn't do anything when you run those lines. The computer will ignore them, right? Anytime there's a hashtag or that pound sign and all the green text to the right of it, the computer will not process when you run that line of code. So these are the installation instructions. Okay? And I'm always careful to tell you guys to be careful. Because with any set of instructions, you need to make sure you follow them carefully, and this is especially true at this point. So just be aware of that. The other thing we want to be aware of are the following, and I mentioned this in the last segment, but I will reiterate this. These green lines, these are comments. They come after the pound sign, and they won't actually run in the code. They're essentially idle text. So if you need a word process, you need to write notes to yourself. This is how you do it in this type of document. And I do this to help explain what it is that's being coded. And if you're doing good coding, okay, that coding should be well documented to explain ideally what is going on in every line if you have some things that are maybe not obvious. I mentioned this in the last segment, but if you put your cursor on the line and you hit Control-Enter for a PC or Command-Enter for a Mac, R will go ahead and run that line. RStudio does that real quick copy from the script file, paste in the console window, and runs that line of code from the top left window down to the bottom left. And again, that will run any line where your mouse cursor is located. If you want to run multiple lines, easy. You just highlight those multiple lines. You hit Control-Enter or Command-Enter at once, and it will run those lines all together in sequence from top to bottom. And you will see a lot of that moving forward in the course. Now, in terms of installing Swirl, it should be pretty straightforward. The first step is installing the package, and this only needs to be done one time. When you're installing the package, and this is true for Swirl, this is true for any other open source packages that we use, and we will use quite a few of them. You'll need to install the package once so that it's locally on your computer. And once you've installed the package, you don't have to really do that again. The files are there. What you will need to do each time, though, you start a new R session, is you will need to call the library, okay, which directs R to those files that are locally stored on your computer. Now, I showed last time how you can do this utilizing the packages interface in the bottom right corner of the screen here. And we saw we could use the graphical user interface, the GUI, to just click this install button and look for Swirl. And there it is. Install dependencies is checked. That's good. And I can hit the install button to install Swirl using the graphical user interface, which I did in the last segment. Since we have the code here to work with, though, let's go ahead and make sure we can do it this way. Okay, so another way you can do this is you can just run line 22 here, install.packages. I'm going to use the function install.packages, and I'm telling it here which package to install. I'm putting the name of the package in single quotes. And I think you can use double quotes. It wouldn't matter. R can figure out what it is you're trying to do. But this line here is important because it does introduce some functional notation, right? Install.packages is a function. And just like f of x equals x squared is a type of function, right? You plug in the value of x, and then the function spits out some output. And that's the same thing with functions in computing. Okay, we're going to feed the install.packages function a name of the package. And then R will take that code and will complete those instructions for you. We'll install the package that is the Swirl package. And there are a lot of functions that are pre-built into R that work like this, where it takes some input and provides some output. Okay, so install.packages, we're going to run that line of code here. So I'm going to put my cursor somewhere on that line. I'm going to hit Control Enter. And what I want you to take note of is what happens down here in the console window when I hit Control Enter. So let's do it. Control Enter on line 22. Boom. Okay. And you'll notice it ran a few things and it started installing some things immediately. It ran a few things, started installing some things. So I'm going to wait until it's done. I'm going to scroll back up so we can see what happened in the console window. So here is what it ran. It ran all of this stuff, right? And the stuff to the right of the hashed signs or the pound signs in green, those don't do anything. So even though you see them being run, R knows to ignore them. The only thing R actually ran here was the install.packages function, and we fed it the Swirl input argument. Okay. So at this point now, Swirl has been downloaded onto my machine. Okay. And if I want to run Swirl, before I can do that, I need to install the library. Okay, now there are additional installation instructions if you want to use the GUI as I've described before in the bottom right window. Okay, there are some instructions for how to do that. Okay, but I've showed that now 2 times in the last segment and in this segment. The next thing we need to do, okay, if we want to open Swirl, is we need to load the library. So right now the package is on our computer, the files are there, but R doesn't know what commands I'm dealing with. For example, if I try to just run Swirl down in the console window, it says, oh, error, I don't know what Swirl is. I couldn't find it. You didn't tell me where it's at. So now we're going to run line 32 here. We're going to tell R, hey, we want you to open the library. So now you will recognize those commands. So when I run line 32, and again, you can highlight the code you want to run, or you can just put your cursor on that line. Okay. Now you'll notice down in the console window, it didn't include all the stuff to the right. It didn't include the comment because I didn't have that highlighted. Okay, so you can run the whole line by just having your cursor blinking on line 32. Okay, or I can just specifically highlight what it is I wanted to run. Okay. Now it says, gave me a little bit of instruction here, right? Down in the console window, it says, hi. Okay. Type Swirl when you are ready to begin. And you'll notice here it says Swirl with an open closed parenthesis, which looks like a function, right? What goes in the parentheses? Sometimes there are no arguments that go in the parentheses. Okay. So let's go ahead and follow those instructions in a moment. Hey, before we do that though, I want to make sure we install the correct course. Okay, so line 35 here says install the course R Programming E. And I want to be very, very clear about this. I know I've mentioned this to a few folks before, but the R Programming E course is different than the R Programming course. They both have 15 modules. All the modules are the same. The only difference is at the end of the modules, the R Programming E course provides a different option for how to submit the modules. The E at the end stands for email submission. If you just load the R Programming course and you go through everything, it will ask you for something like a token, okay, for a course token, and that's not the right version. So if you install the wrong version and you do all that work, I'm going to make you do it all over again, with the right version because you did not follow instructions. So make sure you are installing the correct version of the course, the R Programming E course. And this is the version that we want to install here. So I'm going to go ahead now. I'm going to run that line. I'm going to run line number 35 here. And when I do that, and we're going to look at what happens down in the console window. So it said install course. That's what we ran. And it gave me a little loading bar here real quick. It loaded, took about a second, loaded 100% of that course. And it said, hey, the course installed successfully. For whatever reason, different operating systems, different computers have some trouble with the install course function here. So if that doesn't work, I have provided 2 alternative commands on lines 45 and 40 for also installing the course. One of those 3 should work for you. If none of those 3 work, let me know and we'll circle back and I'll figure something out. I'll troubleshoot it. Now, once we've installed the course, we are ready to open Swirl and begin the course. Okay, so I'm not going to go through the whole 15 modules in this segment. I will do that in the next segment. But for now, I do want to open the course at least so you can see what's in there, and then we can think about maybe loading other courses later. Okay. So at this point, I'm going to follow these instructions that they gave me. They said, hi, type swirl, open, close parenthesis when you're ready to begin. You'll notice on line 48, that is exactly what I have here, swirl, open, close parenthesis. That opens the Swirl course in the console window below. So let's go ahead and run line number 48. Boom. So here is us running that line of code. Okay, and now I'm in Swirl. It says, welcome to Swirl. Please sign in. If you've been here before, use the same name as you did then. If you are new, call yourself something unique. So, okay, what shall I call you? Well, you guys should put your name in here, but I'm going to make a bad joke. Let's call ourselves something unique. Enter. Okay, and it says, hey, thanks, something unique, right? Your name would go there. Let's cover a couple quick housekeeping items before we begin our first lesson. Okay, first of all, you should know that when you see these 3 dots, these ellipses, that means you should press enter when you are done reading and ready to continue. So anytime you see these 3 dots in the bottom left, that is Swirl cueing you to hit enter and move on to the next step. Okay, so once I see that here, I'm going to follow those instructions. Let's go ahead and hit enter. And I'm making sure my cursor is down in the console window for the moment. And in fact, let me make this a little bit bigger. So we had our cue to press enter. And now it's giving me some more instructions. Also, when you see answer, colon, right? The R prompt, that little right arrow, or when you are asked to select from a list, that means it is your turn to be responsive. Okay, so I can see down here, hey, it says select 1, 2, or 3 and press enter. 1 is continue, 2 is proceed, 3 is let's go. All of them really mean the same thing, so it doesn't matter which choice you pick here. If I was to put in 5, though, it says, hey, enter an item from the menu or hit 0 to exit. It knows if I don't put in the right thing. So let's say, let's continue. And once I continue, it gives me some extra instructions here. It tells me how I can get out of Swirl if I need to. And you can exit Swirl anytime and return to the R prompt by hitting the escape key. If you are already at the prompt, you can type bye with parentheses. That will exit out of Swirl and save your progress. So you can leave in the middle of a lesson where you've left off and go back and it will pick back up where you left off. And there are various other commands as well that are going to be relevant as you go through. Okay, so take a moment, look through those. You may need them later. But at this point, I see those dots and it's telling me, hey, it is time to get started. Let's get started. So anytime I see those dots, I'm going to hit enter. Okay, and now it takes me to the course menu. It says, hey, the only course you have is R Programming E. Okay, or you can hit number 2 and number 2 will open up your web browser and take you to the GitHub repository where all of the other lessons reside on the cloud. But at this point, let's go into one, and then I will start it, and then I'll get out real quick. We'll install a couple other courses to make sure we can see how that changes. And then we'll get out of Swirl. I'll end this segment, and we'll start another segment where I will go through the first module of Swirl, of the first R Programming E module in its entirety, showing you how to go through the module, what to do, how to save your work in the script file as you complete the module, and what you will need to submit to me at the end of the module when it asks you for the email submission information. So for now, let's go to the R Programming E course. I'm going to hit enter for selection number 1 from this menu. And you can see here now it has all 15 modules, and I would recommend completing them in order. Okay, so let's go ahead and choose, let's go to number 1, basic building blocks. Okay, and it says, hey, in this lesson, we'll explore some basic building blocks of the R programming language. And you'll notice now there is a little status bar that appears above. And it's hard to see, but the status bar is right here. Okay, right now, I haven't completed any of the lesson, which is why currently it says, oh, you've completed 0%. But you'll notice every time those 3 dots are there and I hit enter, that status bar will start to fill in from left to right, and that percentage will start to increase, which I think makes you feel good. You'll feel like you're making progress as you go through the steps, and you can gauge how far you are along through the assignment. So let's do that. Let's go ahead and hit enter here. Okay, and now I can see, hey, that status bar has been filled in a little bit. 2 equal signs, and now we are 3% done. Okay, and every time I'm going to read the new prompt, making sure I'm reading the directions here carefully. So I read those carefully. Again, I see those 3 dots, which is my cue to hit enter. And you're like, oh, this is easy. I haven't even had to do anything yet, and I'm already 5% done with the activity, right? And you can see that bar is starting to fill in more and more as we move forward. Okay, so now it starts to ask me to do some actual things, right? In its simpler form, R can be used as an interactive calculator. Type 5 + 7 and press enter. So I could follow those instructions. We'll actually do that in the next segment and go through this whole first module to make sure everybody is comfortable with that and with the submission procedure. But for now, I'm going to get out of here. And hopefully you remember, if we type by, open, closed, that will leave Swirl. Okay, and if I was to go back into Swirl, put in the same name, my same name, something unique is the name that I put in before. But if you put in your name and you go back into that first module, it should take you right back to where you had left off. So real quick, I want to make sure we can install the other lessons as well if you're interested in that. Now, they're not required for the course, but you will notice they are extremely useful, especially when we get into these topics. So I do want to just mention the other steps in the process. So step 5 here, you're going to complete all 15 modules in that R Programming E course. Okay, and note, I try to make this disclaimer here, right? It's very important you do not install the wrong course. Okay. The one we're looking for is specifically R Programming E. Okay, and the E is for the email option at the end of that module. Step 6, as you complete the modules, okay, what I want you to do is for every time you have to put something into the console window to move on, you got to type a command. I'm going to ask you to write that command in a script file in the top left corner of the screen. So by the end, you get 100% done with the Swirl lesson. Every line is the input that you had to put into that Swirl lesson. Okay, so you'll have a record of every step that you've taken. Okay, and that is something I'm going to have you email to me. So as you complete these modules, you should be saving all of your code in that script file so you can reference it for later work if you need to repurpose any of that code. So to do this, you got to create an R script file. Okay, that ends in the .r extension. I showed how to do that in the previous module. We just use this little down arrow here. We create a new script file, right? And I can edit that one. I can put all my work in this file. Okay, but We're not going to do that in this segment. And then I'm going to save that file and call it module1.r. And I'm going to copy and paste into the body of the email that I send at the end of the Swirl assignment all the stuff that I had put in this script file. Okay, now step 7, at the end of each module, you're going to follow the instructions in the prompt carefully. When you are instructed to provide an email address, the email address that I want you to use is usdanalyticsfall20@gmail.com. Okay. And next step here, step 8. You're going to follow the instructions provided by Swirl for what information to include in the email subject heading. It'll tell you that. And in the body of the email, I want you to cut and paste all of your work from that module, which you saved in the body of your R script file. Don't attach the script file. I want you to copy and paste it into the body of the email. So the subject of the email is going to have some information that R tells you to put in the subject heading. And in the body of the email, you're going to put the information, right, all the steps that you've saved in your R script file from that module into the body of the email. Step 10, you're going to send the email. And depending on how your email client is set up on your machine, for example, if you have Outlook, your computer might try to open Outlook and send the email automatically. But if it makes you do it manually, if it does not do it automatically, then in this case, you're just going to follow carefully the instructions above for what to include in the subject. And you're going to send the email manually from your own USD student account with the information provided at the end of the Swirl module from your work in the R script file. And then step 11, you can install another course if you want. Okay, these other ones are optional, not part of the course grid, but I highly recommend them because they are very effective for doing what we want to do. So let me go ahead and just install the other courses, and then we'll reopen Swirl. We'll go back in and see what that looks like. So exploratory data analysis. So there are 4 other courses that are important. Exploratory data analysis, getting and cleaning data, statistical inference, and regression models. So if I just take this and copy it, okay, and then I go back to step 3 and I insert that name for the course in those quotes, then that should allow me to install that next course, exploratory data analysis. And I can do the same thing for getting and cleaning data, statistical inference, and regression models. So let's go ahead and check to see if we can do that. I'm going to go back up to step 3 here. And instead of R programming E, let's install exploratory data analysis and see how this goes. So down in the console window, something's going on. You'll notice sometimes you will get a little stop sign up here that's telling you computer's thinking it's taking some time to do something. So you may need to sit tight while it is actually going through the course installation here. So this one looks like it's taken a little bit of time. If you want to interrupt the process and try another method, you can hit stop. Okay, and that will stop here. And it says, oh, there was some error because we aborted the application. And if, again, that method didn't work for you, we have a couple alternatives. So I could come down here, try step 3.2. Okay, we run step 3.2. And again, it looks like something different's going on now. I can see, oh, that status bar is increasing, and it's actually installing that one. So for some of the courses, you may need to use the alternative installation steps. Just be aware of that. But boom, there is the exploratory data analysis course installed. Okay, if I want to install getting and cleaning data, let's go ahead and install that one too while we're here. Let me get rid of that arrow there. But let's go ahead and install getting and cleaning data. Okay, and again, down in the console window here, boom, there is that progress bar up 100%. Installed that course successfully, no problem there. Pretty easy for us. So we've installed exploratory analysis. We've installed getting and cleaning data. And let's go ahead and install statistical inference, which will allow you to review some of the material from Econ 216. Instead of getting and cleaning data now, statistical inference, Control Enter. Boom, real quick, that course is installed. And then regression models, let's do that one. So again, back to that step 3.1, regression models, install that course, and boom, course installed successfully. So at this point, I can reopen Swirl. I can go down to this step here and run line 48, or I can just type Swirl open closed. And now it's asking for my name again. Okay, and I'm going to use the same name I used last time so it remembers where I was in my lesson. I think my name was something unique. I was making a bad joke there because RStudio set me up to make that bad joke. So boom, it immediately knows that I was already working on a lesson. So if I want to return to that lesson, I can hit 1 and take me back to where I had left off. But if I wanted to start something new, I can hit 2. And now it takes me to the set of courses I've installed. And you can see all of them are here now. I got exploratory data analysis, getting and cleaning data, R programming E, regression models, and statistical inference. So if I wanted to do a different one, like I wanted to review my regression models, maybe I can hit 4. And then boom, I see all of the modules associated with that particular lesson, and I can go through those as well. So I hope that was informative, hopefully pretty straightforward to install the Swirl package, to load the library, to install the lessons, and then to get started on those first 15 modules in the R Programming E set of lessons. So stay tuned for more. Next segment, I'm going to actually go through all 15 not all 15. I'm going to go through the first module in its entirety from the R Programming E lesson set. So the first of 15 modules I will go through in its entirety, and I will show you how to set up your script file and what you need to submit via email. So stay tuned for more. I will see you soon. Take care.